everyone. Ogre27 Kane here, and we're doing episode 4 of our month of Zelda. This week's episode is a preview overview of The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom for the Nintendo Switch. This game just came out, and I have a lot to talk about, and there's no way I can review it. This game's just too big. So instead, we'll do a preview overview. Well, let's talk about some changes in the story, first of all. This story takes place directly after Breath of the Wild. Chronologically, it's difficult to place it in the timeline, but there are some events that occur at the beginning which really have me theorizing. I can already see the massive theory videos coming out for this game soon. There are two major events, or rather story spoilers, that you see at the beginning of the game, which allow you to put this in two different parts of the timeline, in my opinion. Possibly more. I don't really know. And like I said, a lot of people are probably going to have some great ideas. Zelda in this game looks like she's fantastically acted again, just like she was in Breath of the Wild. And Link seems to have a little bit more character to him. Even though he's silent, he still has a lot of attitude and things he needs to say. The cool part about this game is it looks like the story is a lot more involved. Some of the events that occur at the beginning are what set everything in the world in motion and allow the world building to occur. And the world building in this game is insane. I mean, I thought they went overboard with Breath of the Wild. This game's world is massive, absolutely massive, and they reworked everything so it feels fresh and new. I love the story and I love everything they're trying to achieve so far. And to be honest, I can't wait to see the end of it. Let's get into the gameplay now. The gameplay in this is really similar to Breath of the Wild, but it has a bunch of new mechanics. One of the important ones, like the Magnesis, was reworked essentially into the Ultra Hand, which gives you a lot more utility out of it, rather. You also have a great fuse ability, which allows you to take your weapons and shields and whatnot, and bows, and double them up, rather, re-equip things to them, and allow them to have a lot more utility and usefulness, such as putting a rock on a sword so you can break boulders, or doing the opposite so you can cut trees. It's pretty useful, pretty handy. I really like the building mechanic in this, and not only using it as just your materials, but in your weapons as well, allow you to do a lot of different utility with the world. Another unique, cool thing about the gameplay in this is having the Sky World. Yes, in Breath of the Wild you could fly around and do all kinds of cool things with your paraglider, but in this game there's actually a world up there, and getting up there and exploring it is half the fun. There's a lot of cool hidden little unique things, and there's no penalty from falling from the top of the sky essentially. You just drop into the world itself and then fast travel to wherever you need to go. I love the transition. It's completely seamless in this game. If there is a loading time for it, it doesn't show it and it doesn't punish you. The last thing I want to add is yes, there are shrines, and yes, there are dungeons, so get ready for some great old Zelda puzzles. Well, next up, let's talk about the combat now. The combat in this game is extremely similar to Breath of the Wild, just basically with new additions, and that's the best way to describe it. As you use your weapons, yes, they do break, and yes, they have endurance, and it's all the similar same old tropes that you had from Breath of the Wild. But on top of that, now you have the ability to fuse these weapons with random items and debris out in the world itself, or other weapons or defensive items, so you can add new traits to these weapons essentially. Want to add electricity? You can do that. Want to add fire? You can do that. It's not just limited to your arrows in this game. You can now fuse all of your weapons with everything else. And that actually adds a lot more time investment with it. You don't feel like you're stuck with this weapon that you don't want to use. You can attach something else to it and waste that attachment. Keep attaching things and it will extend the life of the weapon. And that's extremely valuable. It makes it so I'm not afraid to use some of the better weapons that I have in this game. The other cool thing about combat is that they allow you to use some of these new Zonai devices with your attachments. So you can put a spring on your shield, or you can put a flamethrower on the end of your sword. It makes it pretty versatile, and it's kind of fun. I experimented quite a bit in some of the earlier parts and some of the earlier dungeons. Now, as you get into the game itself, some of these parts might be a little more rare and you find yourself going back up to the sky to find them, but that doesn't mean that it's any less fun. It just means you have to explore the world a little more. The last thing I want to say about combat is that they added some new enemies, like the Gleeok, and I am super happy about that. So let's talk about the graphics and animations now. So first up, let's talk about the graphics. And the graphics in this are a considerable upgrade from Breath of the Wild. The resolution is a lot more stable and handles itself better. It's still dynamic, but it manages to stay at a higher resolution and an overall higher frame rate. Yes, there are issues, and a lot of people have pointed them out, but as a whole, I think this game performs much better than Breath of the Wild did. The other thing that I have to say is that this game still has a dynamic weather, but it seems to stay sunnier a little bit longer, a little bit later, and that's much better because it shows off the art style and the graphics and animations of this game a lot better. On Breath of the Wild, it was constantly getting rainy, and that really affected performance and resolution on the game, and it made it look worse than it really was. So I think they kind of figured that out, and that's one of the things that has helped slow down and mitigate some of the issues they had. Now, as far as the animations go, the animations seem to have a bit of improvement themselves too. A lot of the characters seem to be a little bit more fluid, and they seem to match with their voiceovers a little bit better. It's not really that big a deal, considering it's a Zelda game, but it definitely is a nice little touch, and it's good to see them improving some of the little details. The last thing I really want to say about the graphics and animations is that it doesn't seem like at first it's that big of improvement, but as you play this game, the more and more you realize Nintendo stepped it up. This is definitely the best looking game on the Switch. This is Nintendo's ace in the hole, and they definitely threw their all at it, and it shows. It's a fantastic looking game, and in a comparison you can really see the improvements. So let's talk about controls and audio now. Well, first up, let's talk about the controls. And the controls in this game are really good. They basically just kind of fine-tuned everything. It still has the gyro sensor and the gyro aiming with your bow and arrow, and it still allows you to do just about everything you could possibly think of. I will say that it's nice to have controls to be able to rotate and orient your items as you're building, because there's a lot of interesting little things you have to do. I found myself doing a quest where I have to help this guy prop up signs, and in doing so I have to build little frames out of the junk around it to help this sign. So it's kind of cool to have so many options on how to build said frame. Other than that, the controls are pretty spot on and pretty much what you expect of this kind of game. They work really well and I have no complaints. So let's talk about the audio now. Well, let's hit on the audio, and the audio is fantastic in this game. The ambient tracks start out slow and slowly build up to important events. As you run into enemies, they'll grow and build in their power and magnificence, and as you run and hide from enemies, they'll grow more peaceful. It's absolutely orchestrated fantastically, and Nintendo has one of the best orchestras in the world, in my opinion. Can't really get much better than this. I would just sit and listen to the music if it was up to me. So I think we should do a conclusion now and talk about this game as a whole. Well, in conclusion, this game is definitely Nintendo's finest work. I was kind of upset that this is the game they chose to go up to $70 on, but looking at it, I would have probably paid a lot more. This game has a lot more than $70 worth of content, especially when you compare it to most of the other games on the market. Most other games are incomplete at launch almost. This game is not only complete, but has more content than most other games complete with their DLC. If there's any other thing that you need to convince you, you just need to enjoy Zelda, I guess. I don't really know what to say. This game is the most complete game I've ever played on launch, and this game sold me on Nintendo's brilliance as a world leader in video game manufacturing. In retrospect, we waited 6 years for this game. It really didn't seem like it was that long because we got a lot of other good content on the Switch in between, but that 6 years was very well spent. I'm very happy and impressed with this game. If this is any sort of idea of what we can expect from a long development cycle, then I'm okay with this as long as we still get all of the little good games in between. Nintendo seems to be really good at understanding this concept. It's not all about the big games and it's not all about the small games. I'm really excited to play some other small games that I've recently gotten as well. This game allows me to play games in between throughout the year and games that I'll really enjoy on top of that. So having something that I can always fall back on, an adventure that I can go to as comfort food, allows me to play throughout the entire year and have lots of enjoyment and experimentation with everything I'm doing. Thank you, Nintendo. I truly am happy and I'm impressed with your work this generation. This has been a fantastic run. Even if this game turns out to be Nintendo's swan song, which I'm hoping it's not, I'm really hoping Metroid Prime 4 is the Switch's swan song. But even if so, this is definitely a worthy game to end it with. Nintendo really can't do much better than this, and I'm really happy with this. So, if you need any more convincing, just watch a few more videos and enjoy the ride. Well, thank you so much for watching today. It was a blast to make this video. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, and we are signing out on the month of Zelda.